We're about to get started with a session that I know there was a lot of anticipation being built around. I want to mention again that this was a speaker that was highly requested. In fact, when we put the question out a few months ago, when we were still in the scheduling phase of the summit, Jason Estes was nominated the most amount of times as someone that you all would like to have on as one of the speakers for the summit. So I know I'm looking forward to meeting him, and I've gathered that many of you are as well. This will be the first time that I'm getting the opportunity to connect with him personally after seeing him pop up so many times on my Facebook feed. And I think that has been for good reason. Many of the people that I respect and admire in the work that they're doing seems to have an interest to continuously reconnect with this gentleman and have him share through their platform. So it's my honor and privilege to have this opportunity to do so. Jason, you're free to come online, my friend.
Hello.
Let me actually change my camera so we can go face to face there. I think that's a better view.
Awesome.
It's a pleasure to finally get this opportunity to connect with you, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, you gave me some high praise.
Well, it wasn't just me. It was it's the community. I'll say it again. There seems to be a lot of people out there that is enjoying and being supported by what you're sharing. I know that this last little while of looking to your work myself, I've definitely been assisted by it. So to have this opportunity to, well, just help more people by providing you with this platform to share is something that I'm very happy to do.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm just excited because I have no idea, but I felt called to be here. So here I am. And we're going to be talking about the path forward, which is probably one of the most important things right now, since a lot of people are going, well, I don't know what's going on, because the world seems to be going kind of mad, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty good segue. You mentioned there that the title of your talk is The Path Forward. So I'd like to open things up by asking, what are we moving forward into?
It's called the Age of Truth, right? So we just came out of the Age of the Lie in August, and now we're in the process of the very first part of the Age of the Truth, which actually just ended, actually on the 18th, so 2 days ago. And that first phase was about really reckoning and rebalancing our own understanding of where we were and where we were out of alignment. So this is a huge, most important time ever, because this next phase that starts tomorrow is actually called the alignment of truth. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be realigning to truth as a core concept instead of aligning to the lie as a core concept. And that's a big deal. So in the past, the lie basically ran the world. And now the truth is beginning to run the world. And it's going to take some time to come through, but you're going to watch this week is going to be full of truth on levels no one could ever have anticipated or understood. And then it's going to continue to progress into that more and more as we realign into that. And so this is just like, this is the time that we've all waited for, right? Like the age of truth has dawned, and now it's about how do we align with that truth, because most of us have lived a lie, whether we knew it or not. And I think that that's what a lot of people are struggling with, is they're like looking at these things and going, hey, wait a second, I didn't know that I was living a lie here. And then instead of accepting and really acknowledging, hey, I lived a lie, it's okay, it's not a big deal, it's part of the journey that I was on, people then go into this self-defeating pattern, which just reinforces living that lie again. Because we're all worthy of redemption, regardless of what we've done. There's no one on this planet that's still alive that's not worthy of redemption. It's just really about that grace, that understanding of what that means. And that kind of breaks down into this other perspective that people don't really get, which is the three types of will. You have human will, free will, and God's will. And human will is like this perspective of like primality, so to speak. It's like something that where your body, mind, or an entity moves you through time and space. Free will is where you have conscious choice in the way that you move. And God's will is a completed solution. So the cool part about that is like, no matter what happens in your life, if you give infinite time to it, it becomes God's will, because it's solved. It's that solution, right? But because we live inside of time, we usually live in free will. And so very few of us live to a point where we actually can look back at our life and see God's will, at least in the past. But now that we're moving through time so fast, God's will is becoming more apparent. And that's the beauty of life that we're in. We're in a time where we're actually realigning to what it means to be God's will in form. And the last time this happened was in Lemuria. So the fact that we're able to like come back to this point and recognize and realize that we are living in a time and space that is God's will, everything changes. And there's a cool freedom to that whenever you actually begin to understand that. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about where we are right now and the path forward, is because we're headed home. We're headed home at an accelerated pace. Even though the world looks like it's falling apart, if you actually are paying attention, you see the little tiny glimmers of truth shining through. And you can see the pieces where like the smoke has left and now the mirrors are there and they're apparent. You're looking at it, you're like, that's not true. I can see where it's reflecting something that seems true, but I'm not going to get stuck in that feedback loop anymore. I can walk forward now. And so the shattering of the mirrors is happening now. And that's this next phase, is the accounting of. So as we align back to truth, we take account for our lives. We actually look at all the times that we were true and all the times that we were a lie. And we begin to rebalance ourselves within. And that sets the stage for the greatest world that we've ever lived in, which is the entire premise of why we came here in the first place.
What part do we have to play in aligning with God's will?
That's the coolest part about life. It's about grace, right? And grace is simply the acknowledgement that you're going to fall short because you're inside of time. It's not this whole thing, like I'm not a religious person, so I want to state that for those people that think that I'm religious or are understanding this from a religious perspective, it's just the words align. I believe Christ was one of the greatest teachers to ever walk the earth, and so some of his words are always going to end up aligning in this time and space. So the way I look at it is redemption is the capability of saving ourselves. So that doesn't mean that you have to find some savior to save you. It means that it's time to find your own acceptance within yourself of who you are and the journey that you've been on. And that perspective of acknowledging that is our only purpose to coming into God's will. So can I accept that I've fallen short? Can I accept that all the choices that I've made have led up to this moment? And now that I'm aware of those choices, can I go back and forgive myself? Can I acknowledge them as lessons learned? Or do I still have to defeat myself in every moment and every turn and consider myself not worthy? Because that's our choice. We either forgive and let go and move forward, or we beat ourselves up and end up in a feedback loop. And when we are shown, which we will be over these next few months, we're going to be shown everything. When we're shown everything, can we forgive and let go of it too? Or do we get tied in that density of the victim game? Because we don't need to play victim anymore. The games that created us got us to where we are so that we could actually move forward. So everything is over, but many people are still choosing to play with it. And again, that's that mirror feedback loop that I was talking about. Many people are staring at the mirror and being like, yes, Musk can empower this. And then they're empowering that feedback loop of the distortion. When now we can see clear enough that we don't have to do that anymore. All we have to do is shatter the mirrors so that no one else gets lost.
And that process of shattering the mirrors, how do we approach that? How do we see truth more clearly?
It's about going inward. So the external source of reality has been dictating this world. That was the lie, that the world outside is what you need to pay attention to instead of the world inside. And so now that we're in the age of truth, we're going inward again. And as we go inward again, the mirrors shatter naturally. The belief that we have to be in vengeance or in like this justice thing where we're like shattering mirrors constantly, right? That is the lie. That's what keeps us in the feedback loop, because then we seek out the mirrors instead of seeking out ourselves. When we are truth, the world around us echoes it so strongly that no lie can exist. That's the beauty of what's possible. When we're living in that level of that connection and we move forward, everything that needs to be done is done. It's about handling what's in front of us each time, constantly handling what's in front of us. And when we look to the side, we acknowledge it and go, okay, cool. I caught myself looking to the side. I'm going to move myself back to center and I'm going to walk forward again. And we keep doing that. And all of a sudden, everything that is the lie in our life falls apart. And many people who have done spiritual work over the last years know this. Whenever you come into your alignment, anything that's not true in your world just starts to fall away. People, places, things, right? Like everything is realigned. Now we're going through that in a different way. We're going through that kind of in a more strength way, because there's no other choice. We've had our time to choose to do it, but now humanity is moving into this new era. And because humanity is moving to this new era, there is still choice. I mean, you can choose not to do it and be dragged through it, or you can choose to do it and step up and grow at every day, right? And that's kind of the struggle for a lot of people right now, is like, a lot of people are like, well, I feel like I've not put enough time in, and all these things, and they come up with all these excuses. But what I found is the people that haven't done any work in the spiritual plane whatsoever are actually doing better now than anyone else.
Yeah.
Because the people who did work got caught up in the mirror. And then they were like, oh, every time I clear, I become stronger. And they were staring at the mirror while they were doing it. So all they were doing was clearing the distortion that was the feedback of the mirror. And they felt like they were never getting anywhere. And then you have these other people who aren't like jaded and who aren't angry about doing all this work for the world and getting nothing in return. And they're just like, oh, it kind of makes sense to do the thing that's in front of me. Oh, that was kind of cool. It makes sense to do the thing that's in front of me. Oh, that was cool. And they keep doing this. And then like all these spiritual teachers that have been like at this for years are sitting at the mirror screaming in anger because they're watching people just walk past them. And it's fascinating to me because when somebody walks past me, I celebrate it. I'm like, wow, there's the step. I finally found the step that I was looking for. Excellent. So then I can take that step myself and the mirror shatters. But that anger, that jadedness, that ego identity that's become like, oh, I'm the savior of the world. I'm the Messiah. I'm here as like this Jesus complex thing, right? That's in the illusion of spirituality, is that mirror that's holding people in place. And so what I'm seeing is like all these high level spiritual authorities are just stuck in that feedback loop. The smoke has faded. They know they're in that feedback loop, but they can't let go of their identity because it's been so important to them. And we're headed into a new era. So the identity that we developed is irrelevant in this new world. Like everything that we did to get here, we can celebrate and let go, but it's just about celebrating and letting it go. It's not about holding on to it and saying, well, you don't know what I've done. All the things I've done are better than the things you've done. And I did this thing, and I was part of this grid ceremony, and I did all these things for the world. So why am I not being taken care of? It's about acknowledging and saying, hey, I did all these things for the world, and it gave me life today. So what am I going to do with this life today? How can I grow? How can I improve today? And then we have all these people that didn't do all those things, right? And they're just like, how can I improve today? And they don't have that jaded exhaustion that many of the others do. So it's been really fun to watch and see that like a lot of the higher level spiritual people that we consider are the ones that are actually holding us back because they're stuck in mirrors. And you can watch it. It's happening on the world stage. All the people are deciding whether they want to let go and move forward, or whether they want to hold on to old grudges and old outdated belief structures.
To be clear, it's this identity of the light worker, the savior, that is keeping many that do, I think, I'm sure, have good in their hearts and good intentions in mind, but you believe that it's this grasping onto that identity that's actually holding them back from moving forward.
Yeah, very much so. The identity of the healer means that you have to heal others instead of being a healing example. And when you look at the fourth dimension, you look at a world where analyzation and healing is important to balance out, right? But you look at a fifth dimensional perspective and everyone is whole and complete because time is infinite. A fifth dimensional perspective is God's will. It's not human will. It's not free will. It's God's will. So every step that you take that's in front of you, you're in that alignment of truth. And when we stop and we stare at a mirror, we come into human will. And then very soon after, we come into free will if we're able to break the loop. But we're still locked in that dance of free will and human will. But when we walk forward in integrity and faith, we're in God's will. And in God's will, everything that we need is given to us. We're in that solution. We're solving the world's problems like this so fast. And all we have to do is walk in faith forward. And I've watched it my whole life. It's amazing to see what happens when people walk in faith forwards.
That's more of a addressing of what's right present before us, would you say?
Yep. Whatever's in front of you. So if you don't know what's in front of you, then you just put your hand on your heart and ask, hey, what's in front of me? And it might be getting a glass of water for your body. It might be doing a yoga stretch, right? It might be going to a bookstore for some reason. You never know what it's going to be that leads you where you go. But if you're in God's will, you're always making the connections you need to have when you need to have them. I knew that this talk was part of God's will because I didn't know who you were. And I was like in the middle of just doing something on Facebook. I think I was doing a post or something. And you sent a message and God was like, hey, check that message. And I was like, what? I don't ever check my messages. And then I checked my message and then it was you. And I was like, okay, because Skylar handles all of my booking now. She handles all my emails. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is meant to be. And then, this is a big week for me. So the fact that we're doing it today was just another one of those things. It's like, this is an important thing. I don't know why. I don't need to know why. All I need to do is do the next right thing, the thing that's in front of me, the next right thing, the thing that's in front of me. And today that was this.
Tuning into that call and being able to acknowledge it as that God's will over something other than that, a distraction. What does that feel like sensationally? How are you able to discern that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the best way I would describe it is cloud-like. So it's like no thingness, like you cease to exist all the way. And whenever you start to veer off of God's will, you naturally start to feel a little bit of heaviness. You start to get thoughts again, you start to go into analyzation, you go into all these things. But when you're in God's will, you cease to exist because you're not this personality structure moving through the world as much as you are this divine aspect moving through the world. And it's not about how others see you, it's about how you feel. When you're in God's will, this feeling of just knowing that you are doing the next right thing is so apparent. It's impossible to describe other than like you have no thoughts, you have no pain, you have no feeling in the world. You just feel this empty openness and like this space of love that just expands through time itself. And that is like the best way I could describe it. When you're not, though, the moment that you start to veer off, you start to feel like a little bit of an itch. You start to feel a little bit of a pressure. And as you're starting to feel those things, that's an acknowledgement, hey, there's something that's off. So you can go barely into that, meaning like you just feel the itch and you're like, oh, okay, I'm acknowledging that my body mind is taking over, which means I'm dropping into a lower level of will. Or I can actually go and be like, start scratching that itch, right? And the moment I start scratching that itch, I have given power to human will. And I am immediately dropped out of God's will in that moment. All I can do is work through that and be like, okay, cool. So now that I'm in God's will, what is it that I'm missing? Because I'm paused now and I'm working through it. So I tell my students, whenever you feel an itch, instead of like scratching, just go, I am committing to scratch my beard, and then scratch your beard, so that you're bringing your divinity into form where the human will need its trumpet. And as long as you can do that constantly, what happens is the entity that was once within you is now outside of you until eventually you're able to let it go fully. And that space where human will was, God's will is.
And the difference that I'm seeing there is that it's being done with consciousness.
Presence, yep.
But still there feels like there's this calling that goes beyond our choosing, that aligning with, moving with, has this sense of lightness too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still our choosing, but it's not our choosing in this physical form, right? We are greater than this body. We are so much greater than this body. We're so much greater than anything that we can compare ourselves to. It's one of the reasons why I get so confused when people are like, oh, I'm Mary Magdalene. Oh, I'm Jesus Christ. And I'm like, why? Why are you those things? Why are you not everything that's ever been? Like, if you're gonna align yourself with something that's not who you are right now, at least align yourself with all that you've ever been instead of a single thing. Why are we playing these small games on Earth? These people were great people. They did great things, but they're in the past so that we could do greater things today. So I'm just Jason because I don't need to be anything that I've ever been before because I've already been it. I don't need to be called by anything that I've ever been before because I've already been it. So what's the point in going back into the past and ending up staring at a mirror instead of moving forward with humanity?
It just ends up becoming another identity.
Exactly. And then you break your personality in two, and now you have sub-personalities that play sub-personality games until eventually you get lost in the illusion with everyone else, and no one knows who anyone is anymore because everyone's pretending to be something they're not, staring into mirrors. And it's a house of mirrors. So they're not like the mirrors that are normal reflections, right? They're like, one's a little bit squished. So you've been in a house of mirrors. It's the same concept. That's the distortion that occurs. And then we begin to feed back into that until we become that. And now we once were somebody that was able to be an example of truth, and we've become an example of the lie through our own distortions. And so we lead others into it when all we had to do was stay true to who we were and walk forward. And in all
So would
fairness,
you,
the smoke did make that impossible for a lot of people. Like
and now it
learning
becomes
to
easier.
walk in a house of mirrors with smoke was one of the hardest things ever. But now that the smoke is gone, that was what happened on the 18th. We finished clearing out all the smoke. All that's left is mirrors are standing and people are staring at them. And some of them are mesmerized by their own feedback loop, so they don't know. But as more people walk forward and humanity walks forward, those mirrors are shattering because they're no longer needed games. And so people like Nicki Minaj, people like that are just like waking up going, what just happened? Why am I not able to look at the thing I was looking at? I don't understand. And this is what waking up is. Waking up is breaking out of that feedback loop and seeing the world clearly around you going, this isn't what I thought it was. Everyone else is just staring at screens. They're not even like conscious anymore. They're just in this feedback loop with their screen. They're in this feedback loop with their television, right? They don't know, but then all of a sudden they get unplugged and they're like, the world isn't what I thought it was. What's going on? And then the people around them who were lost in following them start looking around too, asking questions, start wondering why things are the way they are. And then those people around them, right? And that's what happens. That's how leaders are emerged. Is it you just break out of your feedback loop and you're immediately a leader, because this world is desperate for leaders right now. But leading people into mirrors doesn't help anyone. And that's why I'm so happy about this time, because I'm honestly, I never thought in a million years that Nicki Minaj would be a thought leader of this time, like ever. There was one of those moments in my life where I was like, this is not ever going to happen. Like, how is this? And then it happens and you're like, okay, that's God's will. That's blowing my mind right now that that's God's will. Because when people critically think, they're no longer in a feedback loop. It's that simple. Critical thinking only occurs when you're not in fear. If you're in fear at any level whatsoever, you are not able to critically think, because you are now thinking of a loss of resources. And so you're always thinking down here. But if you are not in fear, if you completely abandoned fear and moved into bravery, true bravery, then you naturally elevate up into critically thinking and you can see your world clear as day. You can navigate the maze of mirrors with no problems whatsoever. But it's the moment that a fear comes in that you end up looking around for the mirror to feedback loop into. And that's not a bad thing. That can be part of your free will, right? Because that mirror might be something that you have to stare at, that you have to face. Could be an old wound, something that has got you looped in your subconscious that you don't know about. So it's not a bad thing to stare at mirrors. It's just kind of more complicated whenever you continue to stare at them. But then eventually you devolve into human will and you go into primality and you go into defensiveness and anger and anxiety and everything else that exists, because you're in the lower emotions of the human mind. And that's okay. But that's why we have the world that we have. And now that the mirrors are visible, people are going to break out of them. And as more and more people break out of them, those mirrors are all going to shatter until there is no house of mirrors anymore. There's only heaven. Because the only thing that changed heaven to hell were all these mirrors being put in front of us. And I could talk about why that happened. We could go through the whole story of Atlantis, all the fun things. But ultimately, those mirrors needed to exist so that humanity could heal themselves by pulling out their shadow and finding the truth and staring it down until it ceased to be. Because polarity will always lead to polarity. And the only thing that changes that is love, because love has no polarity. It shines through everything and shatters all illusions.
And what type of experience opens up for us when we allow it to do so?
It's a great question. Are you referring to the whole world or to personal?
That's a great, there's two directions we can go with this, and both. Starting
Well,
with personally.
I think that when we begin to love, truly love, we no longer need others to love us. And it creates a freedom for everyone around them to love themselves. And we all grow together. And I think that when we do that personally first, we naturally attract others to have deep loving connection with. And I don't mean human will level of connection. I mean God's will level of connection, where we actually see each other from this equality that has never been heard of before, where we don't look at genders or ethnicities or anything else because we can't see it. We only see God's perfection in each person. And every subtlety that isn't true, we see as well, but we're able to heal within ourselves because we don't need them to love us. So we don't cater to them. We don't try to change them. We just shine towards them. And I feel like when we do that as humanity, then we will usher in the age that we all came for, that perfection of what we were meant to be. And again, like if Atlantis had never happened, we would be there. But also we would be there in a small group of people, not the billions that we have now. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it was so important. For the longest time, I could never see God's will in Atlantis. I just couldn't see it because I wasn't at a point in my life where I could forgive everything that had occurred in that time and had changed the entire course of history because of it. And when I finally fell into this space where I was like, okay, why can't I let this go? Like, what is in this that's the story that's so strong that's causing all of this? Why can I not see God's will in this act? And when I was finally able to, everything opened up for me and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So more people, more spiritual beings evolving in a shorter period of time so that the entire universe could be in a greater level of love than even capable. So this was part of God's plan, so to speak, right? And so there's this whole perspective that opens when you can see everything as God's will again. And again, that's not a permanent state of awareness for humanity. We're going to go in and out of that constantly because it's like, oh, I'm in God's will. Everything is great. Wait, why is that person doing this thing? Oh, crap. Okay, I'm in God's will. Everything is great. Oh, why is this person doing that thing, right? Because the moment that you expand into that, everything in the entirety of this world, this universe, this cosmos, the multiverse, everything that has ever existed comes up for you. And immediately you get triggered into free will and you have a choice to see it as God's will or not. And if you can't see it as God's will, then you go into human will. And that's not a bad thing either. So whether you're in human will or divine will, right? It doesn't matter. People like go and they go back and forth because that's the dance. But as we continuously forgive and let go and become more and more of God's will in form, the mirrors start to shatter and there's less feedback loops. Until someday, I don't think there will be a time where human will even exists anymore because we'll have grown into something greater. And human will, that level of the mind, will cease to be a thing for us. Are we there yet? No. Will we be there in our lifetime? I hope so. But I also don't care because in the end, if I keep doing what's in front of us, all that matters is I'll arrive where I need to be. And whether that's in this lifetime or another lifetime or this earth or another earth, it doesn't matter. There's a freedom to that. But then you get the other side of this, which is the spiritual escapism, which is, oh, I'm in God's will right now. That's why I'm not paying my bills. That's why I'm not taking care of things. That's why my kid is starving because I'm in God's will and I'm not supposed to do anything. God will take care of everything. And that's that misunderstanding that like if your kid's starving, it's probably in front of you to take care of that kid, right? Or if your bills are not being paid and you're about to be evicted, it's probably in front of you to do that thing. So what is distracting you that's telling you it's not in front of you? What is it that's holding you back from really experiencing that? And that's where, it's important that we actually do something with that space and time because escaping is easy. Like I can sit in meditation and be in God's will all day. But can I go out into the world and stay in God's will? Maybe. We'll see. You never know. Each day is different, right? But every day that I endeavor to go out into the world and be an example of something, then the world grows that much faster. And if I just sit in meditation, that's great. I'm affecting the collective. I'm doing the things, right? But I'm not being an example in physicality. Why did I even come here? I could easily just stay up there and affect the collective from up there. But no, I chose to be human here now, to experience reality for what it really stands for, and to learn to be a personification of divine will in form, to come into that space of God's will. And so that's what I endeavor to do. That's why I can't wait to plant trees in the world. That's why I can't wait to run into all the people in the world as I'm out there doing my service in the world.
We became human because we wanted to be human. And I think there's something to be said about the way that bringing our divinity into this incarnation is one and the same with what it means to ascend, to act in alignment with God's will. Not to say that there aren't any, there probably are some beings that what they're being called to do is spend quite a bit of their time meditating supporting the collective in that way. But I'm willing to bet that many of those that are chiming in for a conversation like this are likely being called to do more in the physical world. Now, where I feel like, and I think you've been kind of pointing to this can be a bit of a deterrent in our own process, is when we become too attached to that idea of this is what I'm supposed to be. Because again, I think what you're describing is that's still looking at another mirror.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, what part does having personal aspirations, having goals, aims as this person play into this? Is it best of us to let go of all thought around this is who I want Brian to be?
It's really an individual thing, right? Because for me personally, I have things that I want to do in this life, right? I consider that my soul signature, the reason that I came here, things that I want to accomplish. But then I also have things that I didn't want to accomplish that were in front of me. So it's more about doing the things that are in front of you, and then you arrive at all the things that you wanted in a better way than you could have ever imagined. Like I've always wanted to plant trees, but as a little kid, I was like, there are other things that are important. I always wanted to build certain companies, but then there were other companies that needed to be built first. There's all of these things that needed to happen so that I could be where I need to be today, so that I can plant the million trees with the technology necessary. Because if I had just planted the trees, then they wouldn't be source seed trees, for instance. They would just be trees that I planted, which is great. I'm not saying that planting normal trees is bad. It's just I had a gift that could create something greater. So if I hadn't unlocked that first, then the trees that I would have planted would have just been regular trees. And I believe the source seed trees are part of the future, why we need to have them. So when you put the pieces together, you go, oh, okay, cool. So if I do what's in front of me, I will arrive at the things that I want as well, but I will arrive at them at the right time with the right resources to complete those things.
And often I find that what unfolds when we act in alignment with that is greater than what we may have previously conceived of in the mind.
Absolutely. You also have the support. So instead of an uphill battle to your goals and aspirations, you have this wonderful journey with all of these new connections that bring a team together around you, so that when you arrive at the goal that you have, you're not alone. You have a huge team of people that have been cultivating and growing, and they're following their passion and they're doing what's in front of them too. But eventually enough people, like what I've found is if you run towards God with all that you are, then eventually you find people that are also doing the same. And it's obvious because they're running towards God with all they are too. And you look over to the side and you're like, hey, you're running the same speed as me. You're running the same speed as me. And there's like a group emerges of people that are not willing to put anything in front of them other than God. But at the same time, they're all running at the same path. And so this amazing path forms of all of these amazing people, and they recognize each other. It's so easy. Or you can look around and try to find everybody else, which wastes precious time because you're not running towards this thing that you came for, this God's will, right? And so what I found is like, it's just easier to just put God in front of you and run towards God with all that you are, and then meet all the cool people along the way. And, you know, they don't always stay up, right? Some of them might have to pause from time to time, have a little water break on the side of the mountain, no big deal, because when they continue to go in their flow again, they catch right back up.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that people don't get is there's so many things that I call walls that humanity has to unlock. Like the old journey of the solo practitioner that's able to unlock every door and everything is over. We're now at the team game of humanity instead of the solo game. The third and fourth dimension were solo games. We could totally solo all the way up to the fifth dimension. And now we're working on fifth dimensional doors where we're like, hey, we need like 10 people for this thing. So let's just get to this thing, and then we can sit and meditate because we got nothing else to do because there's nothing in front of us other than a wall. And then it's about meditating, right? But until we all get to this wall and unlock this wall, we just have to wait sometimes for others. But that doesn't look like we're doing nothing. We're still doing what's in front of us. And that might mean that we end up going back behind us. And this is where a lot of people get confused. They go, wait, you're going backwards. No, God is a 360-degree awareness thing. So if God comes this way and I've been running this way my whole life, that's not a problem. It's a maze of mirrors. So like it doesn't mean that there's an exit, because there isn't an exit, because it's an infinite game. So it's an infinite hall of mirrors that will shatter when everyone is clear, and not a moment before that. But we can shatter certain ones through our own soul signature, right? And what's so cool about this is, like, if we have the capability to have God as a 360 thing and we're running towards it, it's going to look like our path is going to look all kinds of wonky to anyone watching. But if we know and we're in that space of God's will, that's all that matters. And you'll find the people at the right time. And what I found personally is I've run into those walls, and then God's will turns and I go back and I run into a person, and then I help that person get to that thing by being God's will and just like helping to like shine in the mirrors. And then all of a sudden they come to that wall and they're the last person, because other people did the same thing. And now there's 10 people at the wall dissolves. And then we just move forward again until we get to another wall, right? But there's a freedom to it, because I'm not trying to solve the wall. I'm handling what's in front of me. If we think about the destination as our key, then we're often lost in a feedback loop. But if we just do the next right thing constantly, all that happens is we have a blast, and we always end up where we need to be, when we need to be, always, every single time. And that's how the world changes forever, because no one is free until each are free and all are freeing each other. So in the end, it doesn't matter whether I get to the end wall or not, because there's not an end wall. There is no end to the maze until all the mirrors are dissolved, and then we move to the next level of the game.
And I think there's something to be said about the degree of enjoyment that we're going to get out of this moment when we're not fixated upon some distance, some destination that's off in the distance.
Yeah, I don't think you can be self-actualized by goals alone. I think the only way you can ever reach self-actualization is by being fully 100% present with what's in front of you. And in that moment instant, like, you can skip every level of Maslow's hierarchy and lead straight into self-actualization if you just allow yourself to be fully present. Now, does that mean that you can hold it or maintain it? No, but you can benchmark it. The moment you benchmark it, your consciousness will now work with you to achieve that as a permanent state of awareness. But that's the struggle, is we're constantly taught that we have to focus on this thing or this thing, and it's other people's teachings. It's never been about other people's teachings. It's always been about our own internal teachings. Their teachings are just supposed to show us where the path is. But there is only one path home, and it's through you. And when I say you, I'm referring to everyone watching. I'm not referring to Brian, for the record. Everyone. Now, for Brian, it's totally through him. But for everyone else, it's through you. That's what all the teachings were designed to do, was show you the path so that you could walk it. But we then hold on to the teaching, and then we start wearing white, and we start doing all these things when it's not actually in front of us to wear white. I'm not saying it's not okay to wear white. I'm just using that as an example. And now all of a sudden we're now wearing white when it's not in front of us to wear white. And so we're now in free will at the most, and most likely in human will, because we're trying to fit in and understand instead of just being what we are. And if what's in front of us is to wear white, then awesome, wear white, right? But don't wear white because somebody tells you to wear white, because now you've empowered that person over yourself. If a person says wear white and you go, you know what, I feel like I can wear white, that feels good, it's in front of me, I'll wear white. That's cool. You've taken the time to resource that moment and make it your own. But if you do it the other way and you let somebody else tell you to wear white and you begin to wear white, you don't know why you're wearing white. You're wearing white for that person, not for you. And so you just tangled yourself in their feedback loop and become their follower, whether you know it or not, because in time and space, all things must be accounted for. And that little tiny bit of power you gave away is now outside of your account.
And the difference, again, I think, is the awareness to critically think, not take upon this idea and say, this is what I'm supposed to do because someone else told me it's what needs to be done. We can still learn from other people. We can still expose ourselves to those teachings. But I think the key point here is that it still requires us to check in with ourselves to discern our own truth.
100%. There's no teaching that is wrong for anyone in this world. There's no teaching, not even one. It doesn't matter what it is. You can take any teaching in the world, and there's a reason that it exists. We don't know that reason. It might not be right for us, but it might be right for Bob, and Bob might need this thing to go forward, and there's no way to know that. So instead of shaming other people's teachings and saying that that's not right and that's incorrect, what we do is we go, cool, I'm glad that works for somebody, because it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. We cannot create something that doesn't need to be. That's the power of God's will. Everything that is part of a solution that we can't discern. That's just how it is. So instead of being upset with the world around us, we can let go of our judgment towards it and come back into God's will and move forward. And by doing so, maybe that thing that we don't like dissolves because the person that needed it runs into us, because God's will takes us to that person and we're able to help them by being an example. But if we try to find that person in the Hall of Mirrors, we'll get lost in the Hall of Mirrors with everyone else. It's about doing what's in front of you, being fully formed in who you are in your own divine nature. If you can do that, everything changes. Literally, you will help everyone in the world so fast that you can't even fathom it. Your entire world around you will radically change and you will be truth embodied. And that's what we're here to be.
I want to bring up a quote that deeply resonates with me that you're invoking, and it's, do the best you can with what you got from where you're at.
It's a very good quote.
Now, Jason, I do want to give a little bit of time for a bit of Q&A, and we have a few minutes left. So there is one question. Okay, I'm going to ask probably a loaded question that you have a few minutes to answer before we jump into some Q&A, because I'm sure the 230 people in this audience right now probably has some questions. I also want to give a quick shout out to all of the love to Team Humanity that is showing up in the chat. It's absolutely beautiful. I've taken a look and all I'm seeing is Team Humanity, Team Humanity. Thank you, tribe. Hello, tribe. We're in this together. I just wanted to bring some awareness to how much love is in this space. And Jason, well, I'll thank you towards the end of this. So let me ask my question, because I know it's one that I sense it's one that many have. You've brought up the notions a few times now. 3D, 4D, 5D. What's your understanding of the difference in these perspectives?
Okay. Yeah, there's an analytical version of it that I could share, but it feels like it just will spend people. So I'll explain a presence perspective. It's so much easier. If you have physical pain, you're in the human mind, right? So you're in human will, or the third dimension. If you have thoughts of any kind whatsoever, but no pain, then you're in the fourth dimension. And if you have neither, then you're in the fifth dimension. So that is God's will, the dimensional understanding, or the solution of everything. It's that simple. I find that that's easier because if I have pressure, then I know that I'm in a 3D or human will space, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I bring divinity into form and I naturally elevate up, and that area of consciousness that was stuck in a mirror somewhere is returned to me and I am accounted for. I'm in God's will again, within full account. Now, does that mean that the next step forward is going to mean that I'm still in God's account? No, because the next step forward is designed to make me whole. So I'm naturally going to find another mirror somewhere and I'm going to be challenged in that moment. And so then I feel like, okay, is there a physical pain? No. Okay, it's a thought. Oh, okay, cool. A thought. That means it's a fourth dimensional perspective. So then I work with that. And I have tools for each of them that I teach people. So I could go over those really quick if you want, or we can move forward. It's up to you. But I use presence as my teacher instead of analyzation, because it's just easier. Like if you're aware of what you're feeling, then like it's so much faster to move forward.
Presence as your teacher.
Yeah.
I have to
My
ask you to
favorite
elaborate.
quote, the thing that's going to, the only thing on my tombstone, not even my name, when I leave this world, is the truth can never be spoken, only heard in the silence. Because every word that I say is my truth naturally, right? But true truth is the presence that I carry, not the words that I speak. And if I'm in God's will, then I'm carrying the truth with me everywhere I go. If I'm in free will, I'm carrying a part of truth with me. If I'm in human will, then I'm carrying a distortion with me most of the time. There's still truth in it because I'm only allowed to distort if someone else needs that distortion. So it's not that it's not part of God's will. And that's one of the reasons why everything that's ever happened is part of God's will whenever you find the solution. Enough time in anything and it's solved. That's why they say time heals all wounds, because it truly does. For Atlantis, I mean, it's like billions of years it took, but still, we got there.
We got there. And at the same time, we're right here.
Yeah. Well, that's where you come into the metaphor of time, and that's a whole other conversation.
Next interview.
Exactly.
Okay, so I do want to squeeze in a few minutes of Q&A because I'm actually seeing that there are a few people that dropped questions in the Q&A box. So I'm going to quickly ask, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box because we won't be able to scroll through the whole chat. Jason, are you seeing them at all?
No. I don't know a lot about Zoom. So
You're on the
if you want to
computer,
just ask
correct?
it out loud, I can just
Okay.
mute you.
Sandra asks, is God's will when I am present with presence?
Yes. God's will is the solution. So you're walking without footprints. When you walk with footprints, you're creating density for others to solve or for yourself to solve, which is why it's considered not part of God's will at that time, inside of time. But in the metaphor of time, everything is God's will.
Lisa asks, Jason, would you speak of the importance of water? I've been getting that water therapy's in the water and a great wave will come.
Water is one of the most important things that we have on this planet. It holds all of consciousness. It is one of the only things that can be coded fully. And it's also a perfect reflection of the energy that we hold. So when we get into a bathtub and we hold true presence, our molecules change the water molecules, and then the water molecules reflect into us and allow us to open up doors within our consciousness that are greater than what was before. So the reflection of water, the ocean, is actually even more powerful. But the idea is whatever we are when we get into water, it personifies for us and magnifies so that we're able to see a greater version of it. Water meditation is one of the greatest things you can do. Those of you that know what my sound sequences are, if you go and you do a sound sequence in a bathtub while you're underwater, it will change your life. Also, make sure that you have somebody watching you so you don't drown.
I think we have time for about a couple more.
Okay.
Hi, Jason and Brian. Is it possible to assist someone to straighten his or her own healing ability?
Interesting question. The first step is realizing that anytime you heal something in someone else, you actually make it worse for them in the future because you take away their healing journey. Now, if you hold space for their healing to occur, then what you've done is you've actually allowed them to expand in their own healing. And that's where true healing comes from. That's one of the reasons why the fourth dimension was prolonged for so long on this planet, was because Reiki and other modalities were taking people's ability to heal themselves, and it was leading to things. Then coaching became a thing, which actually helped people to then look at their problem and solve it themselves by asking different points of views, direction, right? And that led us to finally breaking out of the fourth dimension and starting to look around and see the world for what it really was.
So do you believe where we're headed, that these modalities will no longer have a place?
I think that coaching will always have a place because it's a space and time that allows us to look and reflect. That's something I personally love doing. Like I have sessions with myself, I have sessions with others constantly so that I can keep looking from different angles, because you're never going to see the whole picture as yourself. Even when you have fifth dimensional perspective, there's still parts of you that are going to be held in other dimensions, because to be fully fifth dimensional 100% would mean that you're dead. You would cease to exist because you have to have some density to be informed. And that's the struggle as we pioneer fifth dimension. Obviously, eventually you only need like 0.00001% density or something, but there will always be something that tethers you to physical form. So having some form of misunderstanding or some form of unknown is what actually allows you to move forward as physical. It's one of the reasons that every teacher that's ever walked the earth forgot something intentionally so they could come here to be part of this game. So I would say that maybe a lot of it will go away as we understand it. Maybe you won't need like a coaching session ever again. Maybe you won't need Reiki ever again. First of all, just for those out there, Reiki, it just raises your voltage. That was the entire premise and purpose of why it was brought here, was so that we could come online. So what happens is when you have touch work done, a person takes their frequency and their vibration and they highlight something within your body that you don't know about. That's all it is, right? So what Reiki does is it raises the voltage to a higher wattage of that area. And if you're in 25 or 50 watts, then Reiki is great for you, because 25 watts is third dimension, 50 watts is fourth dimension, 100 watts is fifth dimension. So when you actually have someone at 100 watts, anywhere they're at, like when they're just walking into a room, the entire space begins to raise up from that 25 point, because they're holding 100% of their wattage. They're actually running current through every cell in their body, running in an actualized state. So Reiki was just holding space for that temporarily, but the problem was that it was destroying people's bodies because they were burning their bodies out because they weren't naturally at 100 watts. It was given to the earth for a reason, but it wasn't given to humanity. It was given to the earth. If you know much about the story of Reiki, you actually understand that Reiki was given to the Gakya to give to the earth, and that it was to help those that could find it. It wasn't ever designed to be sold to the like out in the world like it went into. And that led to a huge issue where like spiritually transmittable disease happened. People started burning out their bodies because they weren't getting the proper training. And now people get attuned online on YouTube and have no idea what they're doing. And they're running that current through their body without knowing, and they're destroying their cellular cycles. It became a huge issue. So, you know, when you naturally achieve that state of awareness, though, it's powerful. It's why it used to take 3 years, 4 years to get a Reiki attunement, was so that you would actually unlock through the things and come into those understandings.
Jason, before we sign off here, I have one question that I tend to feel inspired to ask. Again, you have a few minutes to do your best to jam pack as much of you as you can in this. My question for you to wrap things up is, if you just realized the ability to telepathically communicate with all of humanity, what would you say?
Nothing. Not one thing. Because humanity is perfect as it is. I'm the only thing that's not.
Well, from our perspective, and I'm willing many are willing to back me up on this, you're perfect as you are, my friend. I appreciate you. I know the community does as well. So on behalf of them and Team Humanity, thank you for taking this time to support us and to continue to serve our collective in the amazing ways that you have been.
Thank you. I want to leave with just one thing, if you don't mind, really quick.
Of course.
True power is the ability to know that you can change the world and choose not to.
Thank you
That's the
again.
most powerful thing I've ever learned in my entire life. When you truly understand what power is, you understand the divine in everything, and it reflects so perfectly and so equal that there is nothing to change other than yourself. And that is only so that you can have a greater reflection and understanding of the perfection that is in every moment. So that's what true power is to me, is that capability to stand with the understanding and knowing to change everything in the world, but choose not to.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you for this platform and for all the people that I was able to hold space and share with. And thank you for being awesome. I really appreciated it.
Take care now.